Rooted in resilience, inspired by nature, powered by movement. The podcasts where healing meets empowerment. Let's rise and thrive together. And now, here are your hosts, Scott and Melissa.
Hello, welcome to Rise and Thrive podcast. I'm here with Scott and I'm Melissa. We have an amazing and very, 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 very near and dear special guest to my heart that's going to be with us today. But before that, I want to open up for a moment for us to breathe and to be present here. All the things we got going on. So whether you're busy doing something else or still you're listening, you can still just kind of like take a deep breath, and Scott's going to guide us in that. So here we go for a mindful moment.
I don't know if you've had the week that we've all had, but it's been quite a week. The energy up there is frenetic. And we were just talking before the podcast about how it's been this week. And with my mom, too, I was talking with her, and it is just a crazy time right now. So if you're feeling that, we feel it, too. So let's settle in. Put your feet flat on the floor if you can, or you can lay down. Not if you're driving, of course, we always like to say. And maybe put your hands lightly in your lap. Take the pressure out of your hands for a little while. Let them just rest. Take a nice deep inhale. And exhale all the way out. 2 more cleansing breaths all the way from the base of your spine. And exhale all the way out. Relaxation, exhale. 1 more. And exhale. And just find your own rhythm of breath, relaxing a little bit more on every exhale. Give yourself this gift of just being a few moments. Close with a nice, slow inhale. Hold that at the top. And then exhale. Blink open your eyes if they were closed. Move your fingers around a little bit. Nice big stretch. And if you're still awake and with us, stay with us for the podcast.
Yes, please.
And we will begin. And I'll hand it over to Melissa.
All right. So, welcome, Linda. Thank you for being here. So, I just want to share a little bit because I've known Linda now for a long time. I was trying to figure out what the year was, and I want to say maybe 2011, 2012, maybe. And I think we met. I was at Vita teaching a nutrition class, and I think we connected there. And soon I began to just call her my doctor. So, and for my kids and myself. So Linda has been a nurse practitioner, amazing nurse practitioner for 40 years in practice, and just love that her holistic approach and more of a broad view of the human experience. And that's what really, I think, attracted me to her, and then also just becoming a near and dear friend. And so I very much love her and appreciate that she's willing to come be on our podcast. And if you see, I got to point out, I can see Gracie behind you. And so that might be on the podcast, the new little being in her life who is just the sweetest little thing. So
did you hear her during the mindful moment?
I did. So
you could hear the bone crunching. It was so cute.
Yeah, it's okay.
No, it's fine. It's cool.
We love it because that brings in a little animal spirit into our practice.
Yeah, I'm super happy, and that just adds to the podcast. So, welcome, Linda.
So we love to have our guests, and we, part of our theme of this just being human and living and learning how to navigate these human bodies and care for them, as is our number one responsibility. And so I want to open it up to Linda to share whatever comes to mind, what her heart to share with us, and we'll weave it together. So,
well, thank you both for having me on this. I'm really looking forward to it. I have been for a couple of weeks. If anything, I have trouble not talking. So you may have to put the brakes on if I get too excited or over exuberant. But when I started thinking about what I wanted to talk about, I really want to discuss today weight loss because it's on everybody's mind. And with the new weight loss drugs, medications, I should say, that are out there, I have had an unbelievable stream of people in my office who think that they found the golden ticket to a happy life. And I really want to explain to them, and from my own personal journey, which had nothing to do with the weight loss medications, what I've learned and what we need to know about our bodies and how these medications work, and for even more important, don't work for long term. So um, I think it's really important. People don't really understand in modern culture that our physiology and our biology goes all the way back to the caveman era and hasn't really changed that much. The only thing that's changed is the amount of food that's available to us that runs kind of counter to what our natural biology tells us to do. We're really built for feast and famine. And in the ancestral mind, you would overeat in the summer months because it was the only way to get through the harsh winters where you would go into the cave. And then you would come out lean and mean and ready to hunt again, which would rebuild your lean muscle mass and everything that you lost over the winter because you had to hunt for your food. And there was no food noise. There was no thinking about food in the winter months. Why would you? There's no food available. Why would the body crave something that it knows is not available? And anyone who doesn't believe this, think about if you've ever had a surgery and you can't eat or drink anything overnight. I literally, when I had one of my surgeries, went grocery shopping because I didn't have to be there till later. And I didn't even think about eating the food, or I had no cravings because I knew I couldn't. And that's the closest in modern culture we can come to not having that food noise, is when we absolutely know we can't eat something for whatever reason, which is rare. So what we've done when we've approached the newest weight loss medications is bariatric surgery would work because it eliminated the ability to eat food. You would eat a certain amount of food and you'd be full, and if you ate more, there were consequences that were unpleasant. But it didn't eliminate the food noise, that thinking and craving food. And the reason that these medications are so popular is because it takes that craving for food away from people. The problem with it is we're taking that ancestral body and we're putting it into the cave for the winter by taking away the craving for food and putting people into this kind of a starvation mode with no end game. When do they come out? What's the plan when they come out? And if they go off the medication, our physiology is going to do exactly what our ancestors did. And we're going to regain and we're going to have an overwhelming food drive to regain what we lost. And on top of that, we're not going to hunt for it. So we're going to not recover our lean muscle mass that we lost during the process of being in the cave. So that's a huge problem with these medications. And the people that I put on them, and I do so very reluctantly, in some cases, I make absolutely sure that they're doing weight training and protein and managing their protein. And I've had two very, very successful clients who are now in the gym 3 days a week and they're doing fabulous and they're off the medications. But that's rare. I mean, I would say maybe 1 out of 20 or 30 will really use that appropriately. The rest just want something that doesn't require a lot of effort on their part. Oh, thank God I don't have to think about food. And just like the bariatric surgery and the medications, the injectable medications, what they have in common is they put us at very high risk for malnutrition. Because when we do say, oh, I got to eat something, in either case, it doesn't tell you what to eat. And people go, oh, I can only put this much in my stomach because I had the surgery. So they choose M&Ms. And in the meantime, they don't choose the foods that are actually nourishing their bodies. So they end up malnourished on top of being thin, but not in a good way. So it's a struggle for me to really get them to understand how dedicated you have to be to your health if you're going to take this route. I tell them you take two people and you put them at the bottom of the mountain, and the goal is the peak. And the one goes on the hike from the base of the mountain. They're going to reach that peak a lot healthier. They're going to be healthy. If you take the chairlift, you're going to get halfway up there. Then you're going to have to get out and walk, because what happens is the reason these medications stop working after about 14% body loss is your body doesn't trust you anymore. There's no trust. You took away its food and fuel source and you didn't replace it with anything. And all of a sudden, it can handle that ancestrally while it's in the cave for a while. But at some point, that cave turns into a concentration camp, and the body thinks, I'm starving. I got to hang on to every single thing that I can. And you not only plateau, but you become unhealthier in the process because your body starts digesting its own muscle for protein, and you end up with more fatigue. You end up weaker. You don't have the metabolic conditioning that you would otherwise have. So there's a limit to what it will do. And then you're stuck with, wow, now I got to stay on this for the rest of my life. And no one has successfully done that. I mean, most of them will drop off it after a year or 18 months. And the long-term studies we have are less than 2 years at this point. And they're not encouraging in terms of the muscle mass loss. In fact, it's one of the things that I do when I test my kind of trial. Are my patients really ready for this? And I'll give you an example. I had one woman, and I was trying to emphasize the importance of weight training and maintaining your muscle mass while you're on these medications. And I said, it's such a problem that pharmaceutical companies, being pharmaceutical companies, are now trying to develop a pill that will maintain your muscle mass while you're losing weight on their other medication. And her answer to that was, really? Oh, that would be great. And, I thought, okay, not really ready to put any effort into this. When you want that approach, you're not really ready for the change that you need to make. And one of my very good friends decided to go on into a trial of the weight loss medication. A couple of years ago, well, about a year and a half ago. And she wanted me to do it with her. And I'm like, no way, no way am I doing this. And I had already gone back to weight training, which I discovered about 2 years ago because of a shoulder problem. Melissa's really familiar with this. And I went right from physical therapy to the gym and joined the gym. And I think when you look at exercise, you really have to take very good stock of your skills and your weaknesses. What are my strengths and what are my weaknesses? Not physically speaking, but just emotionally, mentally, whatever. And the only strength I really have that I could pinpoint was I will show up for an appointment. Whatever the appointment, I will be there because I don't want to waste someone's time. I don't want to waste my money, and I don't want to disappoint people. So joining a gym didn't do it for me because no one cares if I show up or not. So I had to hire a trainer because I knew if there was someone tapping on the desk waiting for me, I would be there. And so 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, I started training twice a week. And I found out that I love weight training, not so much the aerobics. Never was much of a runner, boring, didn't really like it. Loved weight training though. And what I told her that first year, I really didn't pay much attention to weight. And I didn't pay really much attention I didn't change anything about my diet, which was not the best. Even so, 60 minutes twice a week, which is all I did. I didn't even set foot in the gym other than to see the trainer. I started noticing that my strength was improving. The best way I could describe it to people is I felt like I had this strong body wrapped in bubble wrap. all the fat was still there. My form did not change at all. Nothing, my pant size didn't change. With all the weight training, nothing changed except I felt internally, and because I do yoga with Melissa and others, I've learned to really pay attention to what's happening internally. I could feel the muscles. I could feel the strength building. So it was encouraging, and I really didn't put too much pressure on myself. I just thought one step at a time. It's just 2 days a week. And I tell people, how much time do you have to devote to yourself to get well, to get better? And if you can't find 2 hours in your entire week that you can give yourself, you have a problem that you need to address before I can help you. I mean, that's just whether it's 30 minutes 4 times a week. But for me, literally 60 minutes twice a week was the only change I made the first year. And I came out of that a lot better off. Didn't lose a single pound, didn't change my clothes size, but started to feel better. And then a really weird thing happened. And I say weird because I have struggled with weight my entire life. I stopped craving sugar and started wanting protein. And my trainer had been barking at me for a year about Bailey. She's amazing. Um, and I finally started paying attention, and she told me 120 grams a day. And I thought, yeah, I'm not doing maybe 100 because I'm a rebel. Um, and the more protein I ate, the less I craved sugar and carbs. And she said, your first year of newbie games, now you have to really pay attention if you're going to build more muscle. And what was amazing was, without really even trying, I ate less fast food. I didn't crave sweets. And I started shopping once a week. I started cooking, which I hate to do. I once told a friend, if I could afford either a cook or a housekeeper, I'd hire the cook every day. Every day. I'll clean the bathrooms, you cook the meals. Hate to cook. But I found ways to food prep that were simple and worked for me. Um, and I started losing weight, and it was incredible. 1 pound, 2 pounds a month. I went on Noom, which is way too expensive, quite frankly, but I'd already, and I weighed myself every single day, which was interesting because people who weigh once a week may see a high and a low, but if they hit that high 2 months in a row, they'll think that nothing has happened. When in reality, the day after I train, my weight goes up a pound or two because you've created an inflammatory process, and you're going to have fluids, and you're going to have healing, and you're going to build muscle back bigger and stronger. So you find all those nuances in your weight if you weigh every day. No judgment, just weigh every day. And then I kept chart of monthly. The first of every month, I would just take stock of where I was. And over the past year and 2 months, I'm proud to say, as of this morning, I've lost 34 pounds. But it was a pound or 2 pounds a month, never more. And I think that's really important because the biggest mistake people make when they try and lose weight is first they think they punish themselves, which I think is really sad because we need to build trust with our bodies. We're the rider, our body's the horse. If you feed the horse M&Ms, it's not going to take you to the end of the driveway, much less where you want to go. You got to feed quality things to your body if you expect it to perform for you. It's pure and simple, right? But I, what I really want to emphasize is that you have to not panic your body. If you cut it off and you go on a restricted calorie diet, the body's going to panic. It's like, oh my God, we're now in starvation mode, and it's going to shut your metabolism down rather than build it up. And it's just gonna go, "Oh, we're not losing anything. It'll shut the factory lights." I tell people, your body's like a factory. It runs 24/7. The majority of our energy is consumed with internal processes, brain, lung, heart, all that takes 95% of our energy needs. The rest is for muscles. So, you're not going to lose weight by working out in a gym without adjusting some other things. But the uh, the bottom line is you have to build that trust. And some people call it carb cycling once in a while, like days I exercise. I'll increase my carbs a bit. I'm not a micronutrient geek who just monitors everything. I've learned to listen to my body. And that sounds simple, but it was absolutely profound for me because I had never known how to do that, or I wasn't doing it.
Linda, that's part of the mindfulness practice, right? And which is something I'd like to ask you about. And you talked about your routines and changing your routines. How did you do that with your mind? Where were the struggles and what were the successes while you're adopting a new routine? And how did you stay true to that mentally? And how did you stay grounded in the process?
Oh yeah. First of all, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. When my girlfriend started losing weight, and I thought, "Oh no, you are not getting skinny without me," and then she had mentioned to me, she said, "You need to take the shots because you'll never get rid of the food noise. You're not going to be able to lose weight without these." And I thought, "Oh yeah, watch me." So there was a little bit of competitive edge there. So I have
My
to be.
protein shake.
Yeah, I got to be completely honest about that.
Uh-huh.
Um, but as far as the day to day, I'm 69 now, and I have women sitting in my office every day practically that will tell me, "I'm postmenopausal, I'm older, I just cannot do this." And I now look at them and say, "Oh, yeah, you can. You've got to stop thinking that way. But you cannot do it without exercise. You cannot do it with and diet." It's such a simple thing. Sometimes we make things really complex, and then it comes right down to the basics again. And I had to come to terms with that. So mindfulness for me was more just paying attention because when you get to be 69, I figure I don't have a lot of time to undo mistakes. A lot of Twinkies have gone into this body. And that's just a metaphor, but yeah, um, for everything. I've done the body abuse with foods for a very, very long time. Didn't grow up in a household where things were healthy or active for that matter. We had it was great family. Don't want to say anything bad about my family. But it was the 60s, and the 50s where TV dinners came on the market, and I had two working parents, which was unusual in those days. So we didn't grow up on robust food and weekend hikes. And so I had to learn all that. That was not part of who I was in probably my entire life. I loathe the exercise. I joke about not liking to sweat every time I see my trainer, but she makes me anyway. Um, so I guess it was more the focus isn't on how I look. I really don't care that much. I mean, we all care, but I'm saying it wasn't about getting into a certain size pants. It was about being able to get out of bed and make it through a day without feeling like I needed two naps and a, caffeine drink of some sort.
Yeah, and I still remember the day. I remember the day that you messaged me and shared how you just lost that desire to go through the drive-through that day. You're like, it's gone.
Yeah, it
And I just
shocked
love
me.
that. And then watching that confidence in you being able to, with ease, get up and down from the ground in our set, it was awesome to see. And that I look at it as, yes, the 2 years, but as you and I both know, that neurological pattern change of what you grew up with was beautiful to witness over the years when it was a struggle for you, when we were making the food and doing all of that. And then watching it just naturally as you stayed consistent and kept at it, kept kind of like exploring it. And then today there's new wiring.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And yes, and that's also a good point about the other thing that drove me to do this is I had become terrified of falling. And you talk to anyone my age, especially women, and you will hear that. And I'd gotten to the point where I was stepping sideways off curbs
Yeah.
because I felt that if I went forward, my legs would give out. That's how weak I had become. And to master the curb at the post office in West Salem, I don't know if you guys know, it's the biggest dang curb in town, I think. And that was one of my goals the first years. I'm going to step off that curb not going sideways off of it. And boy, the day I did that, I went, "Woo," and went into the gym and celebrated with everybody. But it's definitely rewiring. Any muscles that we don't use, we lose. And this is where weight train, I know not everybody likes it or thinks they can do it, but the more we see research, particularly in my age group, the more we see connections between the mind and the body in terms of dementia prevention, for one thing, and just being able to trip and catch yourself, because let's
That
face it,
recovery.
you're
Yeah.
gonna trip no matter what your age. It happens.
Yeah.
It's the recovery that you have to have wired automatically, and that's what you lose if you don't use your legs the way you're supposed to, the way they were intended to. So, yeah. I don't know if I answered that question for you.
Oh, totally. I think, yeah, just that advocate for, and, on top of that, more muscle mass, more insulin receptors, more, right? It's just a healthier individual.
Yeah, and metabolic increases metabolic rate. So I tell people too is, you know what? I can sit now and enjoy a television show knowing that I'm actually burning more calories than I was a year ago doing the same thing.
Right. Right.
How do you help your patients think differently? Because you've said this a few times that it starts with the thinking, and you just have to think differently about that. And I know you're not stopping there, but I say, well, you have to think differently about it and moving on. So what kind of advice and support do you give them to actually change their thinking?
That's a very good question. Um, One of the things I learned in my career is that I'm the coach, I'm not playing the game, and that sometimes people have to be told several times before they reach that point where it sinks in. Just like my trainer and the protein thing, I ignored her for a year, but I processed it. I knew when it was time. So I have to be happy sometimes with setting the goal and just planting the seed, and I may not be there to see it grow into fruition, but it's the only way I don't get frustrated with people. And yet I also understand them. I've done that myself. I call them light bulb moments. And when I see a light go off in my patient's eyes, and it can be something really simple. I had a woman in the office the other day, and all I told her was, look, I do, because they see the difference. And now that is the best conversation starter ever, is when they look at me and notice the difference. And then I tell them, let me tell you what I did. Because I've been told, oh, did you use the shot? I did not. But that's a starting point for me. And this one woman, I was talking about the weight training, and she says, I don't have a lot of time. And I said, look, I do 60 minutes. I do an hour twice a week. That is it. And the light bulb went off. I said, that's it? And I said, absolutely. That's where I started. And that was the domino that knocked all the other ones over. It doesn't have to, if you change everything right away, you're gonna fail. You have to just make a decision, we'll talk about nutrition, and I'll just use the phrase nourish first. I don't care. You get all the crap and food that you want that does nothing for your body, but not until you have given the horse its oats. I mean, and then the M&Ms and whatever you want. Because honestly, the more you give nourishing food, the better they'll feel and the less they're going to crave that stuff. I know that, but it's a theoretical argument to them. So I just say, what have you given, or I'll ask them, what have you given your body today that it thanked you for? You know, yeah. And just start with something as simple as that. I'll give them the suggestion of protein. I'll say, I don't want you to change anything, but I want you to text me tomorrow, and I want you to go home and I want you to calculate how much protein. Read the labels, Google, use Alexa, whatever you have to do, but tell me how much protein you had today. Or I'll do a 24-hour diet recall and we will figure it out ourselves. And, it's always terrible. So, and just to get them to understand and start thinking that way. And then I'll hear back. I have a young woman in my practice, and her mother is also a patient of mine. And I saw her mother the other day, and the young woman has really taken this and just run with it, right? And her mom needs to lose weight. And so her mom comes in and she says, yeah, the other day I was starting to eat something, and my daughter looked at me and said, Mom, how much protein is in that? And when she told her, she goes, Linda would not be happy with that. And I thought, okay,
Yeah.
that's
Mhm.
wonderful. To me, that's success, pure and simple. Is just getting people to take those first tiny steps towards giving their body something it can use.
Yeah. That's great.
I love it.
Linda, if you could go back to your 30-year-old self, I always like to ask a provocative question toward the end of our podcast of our guests. But if you could go back to your 30-year-old self, knowing what you know now, what's something you would do differently in your lifestyle that would lead you to where you are today?
That is both easy and the most difficult thing in the world at the same time. I raised an autistic son who kept me incredibly busy. So in my 30s and 40s, I was working full time in school, getting my nurse practitioner degree, and raising two sons. And I was the only income in the family. So when I look back, I got to give myself a little grace in terms of what time do you have. However, what I would have told myself back then, find 60 minutes twice a week and train. That would have absolutely changed everything, I believe. And it's kind of unfortunate that I didn't figure that out till I was 68. But if I can use that experience and help other people to get started along that path. I actually had a woman text me yesterday, and quite frankly, it was a little frustrating for me too, because she took the ball and ran with it, but not in the way I had anticipated. She went full guns, which I don't ever recommend. And she went to a gym. She hired a trainer. She's working out 5 days a week. She's on a 1,200 calorie diet, which she is pretty much, and she's done this for 4 or 5 months now, and she hasn't lost a pound, and she's frustrated, and her trainer's telling her, trust the process. And I'm thinking, too much. You did this too fast and you've changed too much and your body's in panic mode. It has to be putting that much demand on it and then taking food away at the same time. That's what I'm talking about. You have to build this trust with your body. You have to do it slowly if you expect it to pay off in the long run. Persistence and patience. Absolutely have to have both.
Well, I want to tie in the mindfulness there because, a yoga practice,
Yeah.
not putting yoga on a pedestal, but that mindfulness practice of being able to be that observer of your body and unite that befriending. Your body's a friend, not a foe. And many people are treating it like the other. And being able to build that trust, and as you mentioned earlier too, that intuition will deepen as you feed your body, as you listen. Your body's going to guide you with what it needs, and helping people to realize that versus all the noise out here telling you to do this, take this, right? And so it's that time to get quiet and connect. And I've been able to watch that for you over the years, that deepening of that, myself included. We're on the journey together to be able to deepen that union and realize that, hey, I'm in it for the long haul. And I want to be able to step off that curb, and I want to be able to get up and down off the floor, and I want to be able to lift some heavy things and do so elegantly and with confidence. So,
Yeah. Linda, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you today and bring your perspective and your experience and your advice. I loved your answer to the 30-year-old question. I think that so many people are caught up in their own lives with their own children and their own issues and their own struggles, that you've helped people today to maybe take that 60 minutes twice a week that they wouldn't have done because they're not thinking like that, like you are not thinking like that. And I think that's part of what we're trying to build here as we build this community and try to bring people together to use knowledge from others. And you've just done a wonderful job bringing those gifts today. And we really want to say thank you for
Oh,
taking the
well,
time.
thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And that's it for us today for Rise and Thrive. Don't forget about our wellness retreat coming up in September, the 11th through the 15th. There's a few spots left. And if you need to take a break and reset to come back and bake in these wonderful practices that Linda talked about today, that'd be a great time for you to do that. And we will see you next time on Rise and Thrive, a podcast by Vital Edge Wellness Coaching. So take care of each other. And don't forget to, of course, take care of yourselves. We'll see you next time.
Namaste.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Rise and Thrive. If you're ready for a deeper reset, join us for our upcoming wellness retreat in Mexico, September 11th to 15th. It's the perfect opportunity to recharge through movement, mindfulness, and connection. Visit vitaledgewellnesscoaching.com to learn more. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a little more rise and thrive in their life. Follow us on your favorite platform to stay inspired. And until next time, keep rising and keep thriving.